Hey, you guys. It is a cold and rainy day here. I promise I'm going to do more videos with the animals, but it is so freezing. I cannot go out there and try to do a video. I'm afraid the computer will get wet. There was a new baby lamb born and this weekend, and she's all white and she's very cute. And she's got curly little tail and like curls coming off her tail. She's really adorable. And so I'll try to get some videos with her next time. And then we've got one more lamb due, and then the llamas should start. Well, I've been saying they're going to pop for a long time. I've given up hope. They'll come when they come. I hope that you guys had a great weekend. It was beautiful outside. I did a ton of shearing of llamas all across the state. I'm really tired still, but I'm catching up. I'm excited for our Zoom tonight. I've got a really fun game planned. So remember to come up with an interesting fact about yourself that I may or may not know, that you may have brought up in class, and make sure to come up with 3 options. One of them is true, the other 2 are not. I have to guess. And then we'll play a game from there. Remember that they're in a big fight with Hermione still. I feel like they've been in a fight with her this entire book. And they're going to go to... I can't believe they're letting the Hogsmeade visit still happen, but they are. So, remember Hermione's like, don't go or I'll tell. And then Ron's like, you should come because I'm mad at Hermione. And then Harry's like, all right, I'll come, but I'm going to bring the invisibility cloak. All right. On Saturday morning, Harry packed his invisibility cloak in his bag, slipped the Marauder's map into his pocket, and went down to breakfast with everyone else. Hermione kept shooting suspicious looks down the table at him, but he avoided her eye and was careful to let her see him walking back up the marble staircase in the entrance hall as everybody else went to the front doors. Bye, Harry called to Ron. I'll see you when you get back. Ron grinned and winked. Harry hurried up to the 3rd floor, slipping the Marauder's map out of his pocket as he went. Crouching behind the one-eyed witch statue, he smoothed it out. A tiny dot was moving in his direction. Harry squinted at it. The minuscule writing next to it read, Neville Longbottom. Harry quickly pulled out his wand and muttered, Descendium, and shoved the bag into the statue. But before he could climb in, Neville came around the corner. Harry, I forgot you weren't going to Hogsmeade either. Hi, Neville, said Harry, moving swiftly away from the statue and pushing the map into his pocket. What are you up to? Nothing, shrugged Neville. Do you want to play a game of Exploding Snap? Not now. I was going to go to the library and do that vampire essay that's due for Professor Lupin's Defense Against the Dark Arts class. I'll come with you, said Neville brightly. I haven't done it either. Hang on, yeah. Oh, I finished it last night. Brilliant! You can help me, said Neville, his round face anxious. I don't understand a thing about the garlic at all. Do they have to eat it, or... Neville broke off with a small gasp, looking over Harry's shoulder. It was Snape. Neville took a quick step behind Harry. And what are you 2 doing here? Said Snape, coming to a halt, looking from one to the other. Odd place to meet. To Harry's immense disgust, Snape's black eyes flickered to the doorways on either side of them, and then to the one-eyed witch statue. We're not meeting here, said Harry. We just met here. Indeed, said Snape. You have a habit of turning up in unexpected places, Potter, and you are rarely there for no reason. I suggest the pair of you return to Gryffindor Tower, where you belong. Harry and Neville set off without another word. As they turned the corner, Harry looked back. Snape was running one of his hands over the one-eyed witch's head, examining it closely. Harry managed to shake Neville off at the fat lady by telling him the password, then pretending he'd left his vampire essay in the library and doubling back. Once out of sight, it's kind of rude to just leave Neville hanging. I really don't like the way that they treat him. He's a nice guy. Makes a lot of mistakes, but nice guy. Once out of sight of the security trolls, he pulled out the map again and held it close to his nose. The 3rd floor corridor seemed to be deserted. Harry scanned the map carefully and saw that with a leap of relief that the tiny dot labeled Severus Snape was now back in its office. He sprinted back to the one-eyed witch, opened her hump, and heaved himself and slid down to meet his bag at the bottom of the stone chute. He wiped the Marauder's map blank again with his wand, and then set off at a run. Harry, completely hidden beneath the invisibility cloak, emerged in the sunlight outside of Honeyduke's and prodded Ron in the back. "It's me," he muttered. "What kept you so long?" Ron hissed. Snape was hanging around. They set off up the high street. "Where are you?" Ron kept muttering out of the corner of his mouth. "Are you still there? This feels weird." They went to the post office. Ron pretended to be checking out the price of sending an owl to Bill in Egypt, so that Harry could have a good look around. The owl sat hooting softly down at him, at least 300 of them, from great grays right down to tiny little scop owls, local deliveries only, which were so small they could have sat in the palm of Harry's hand. When they visited Zonko's joke shop, which was so packed with students, Harry had to exercise great care not to step on anyone and cause a panic. There were jokes and tricks to fulfill even Fred and George's wildest dreams. Harry gave Ron whispered orders and passed him some gold from underneath the cloak. They left Zonko's with their money bags considerably lighter than they had been on entering, which means that they bought a lot of stuff. But their pockets bulging with dung bombs, hiccup sweets, frog spawn soap, and nose-biting teacups. The day was fine and breezy, and neither of them felt like staying indoors, so they walked past the 3 broomsticks and climbed a slope to visit the Shrieking Shack, the most haunted dwelling in Britain. It stood a little way above the rest of the village, and even in daylight was slightly creepy, with its boarded windows and dank, overgrown garden. "Even the Hogwarts ghosts avoid going to it," said Ron, as they leaned on a fence, looking up at it. "I asked Nearly Headless Nick. He said he's heard a very rough crowd live here. No one can get in. Fred and George tried, obviously, but all the entrances are sealed shut." Harry, feeling hot from their climb, was considering taking off the invisibility cloak for a few minutes, but then they heard a few voices nearby. Someone was climbing towards the house from the other side of the hill. Moments later, Draco Malfoy appeared, followed closely by Crabbe and Goyle. Malfoy was speaking. "Should have an owl from Father any time now. He's going to the hearing to tell them about my arm, about how I couldn't use it for 3 months because of that beast. Of course he's talking about Buckbeak the Hippogriff." Crabbe and Goyle sniggered. "I really wish I could hear that great hairy moron trying to defend himself." "There's no arm in him, I'm honest. That hippogriff is as good as dead with my dad on it." Malfoy suddenly caught sight of Ron. His face split into a malicious grin. "What are you doing, Weasley?" Malfoy looked up at the crumbling house behind Ron. "Suppose you'd love to live here, wouldn't you, Weasley? Dreaming about having your own bedroom? I heard your whole family sleeps in one room. Is that true?" Harry seized the back of Ron's robes to stop him from leaping on Malfoy. "Leave him to me," he whispered in Ron's ear. The opportunity was too perfect to miss. Harry crept silently around behind Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, bent down and scooped up a large handful of mud out of the path. "We were just discussing your friend Hagrid," Malfoy said to Ron. "Just trying to imagine what he's going to say to the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. Do you think he'll cry when they cut off the hippogriff's head?" Splat! Malfoy's head jerked forward as the mud hit him. His silver blonde hair was suddenly dripping with muck. "What the?" Ron had to hold himself onto the fence to keep himself standing. He was laughing so hard. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle spun stupidly on the spot, staring wildly around. Malfoy trying to wipe his hair clean. "What was that? Who did that?" "Very haunted up here, isn't it?" said Ron with the air of one commenting on the weather. Crabbe and Goyle were looking scared. Their bulging muscles were no use against ghosts. Malfoy was staring madly around at the deserted landscape. Harry sneaked along the path where a particularly sloppy puddle yielded some foul-smelling green sludge. Splatter! Crabbe and Goyle caught some this time. Goyle hopped furiously on the spot, trying to rub it out of his small, dull eyes. "It came from over there," said Malfoy, wiping his face and staring at a spot some 6 feet to the left of Harry. Crabbe blundered forwards, his long arms outstretched like a zombie. Harry dodged around him, picked up a stick, and lobbed it at Crabbe's back. Harry doubled up with silent laughter as Crabbe did kind of a pirouette or a twist in midair, trying to see who had thrown it. As Ron was the only person Crabbe could see, it was Ron he started towards, but Harry stuck out his leg. Crabbe stumbled, and his huge flat foot caught the hem of Harry's cloak. Harry felt a great tug, and then the cloak slid off his face. For a split second, Malfoy stared at him. "Ah!" he yelled, pointing at Harry's head. Then he turned tail and ran at breakneck speed back down the hill, Crabbe and Goyle behind him. Harry tugged the cloak up again, but the damage was done. "Harry," Ron said, stumbling forward, staring hopelessly at the point where Harry had disappeared. "You'd better run for it. If Malfoy tells anyone, you gotta get back to the castle, quick!" "See you later," said Harry, and without another word, he ran down the path towards Hogsmeade. Would Malfoy believe what he had seen? Would anyone believe Malfoy? Nobody knew about the invisibility cloak. Nobody except Professor Dumbledore. Harry's stomach turned over. Dumbledore would know exactly what had happened if Malfoy said anything. Back into Honeydukes, back through the cellar steps, across the stone floor, through the trapdoor. Harry pulled off the cloak, tucked it into his arms, and ran, flat out across the passage. Malfoy would get back first. How long would it take him to find the teacher? Panting, a sharp pain in his side, Harry didn't slow down until he reached the stone slide. He would have to leave the cloak where it was. It was too much of a giveaway. If Malfoy had tipped off a teacher. He hid it in the shadowy corner and then started to climb as fast as he could, his sweaty hands slipping on the sides of the chute. He reached the inside of the witch's hump, tapped it with his wand, stuck his head through, and hoisted himself out. The hump closed, and just as Harry jumped out of from behind the statue, he heard quick footsteps approaching. It was Snape. He approached Harry at a swift walk, his black robes swishing, then stopped in front of him. "So," he said. There was a look of suppressed triumph about him. Harry tried to look innocent, all too aware his sweaty face and his muddy hands, which he had quickly hid in his pockets. "Come with me, Potter." Harry followed him downstairs, trying to wipe his hands clean on the inside of his robes without Snape noticing. They walked down the stairs into the dungeons and then into Snape's office. Harry had only been in here once before, and he had been in serious trouble then, too. Snape had acquired a few more horrible, slimy things in jars since last time, all sitting on shelves behind his desk, glinting in the firelight and adding to the threatening atmosphere. "Sit," said Snape. Harry sat. Snape, however, remained standing. "Mr. Malfoy has just been to see me with a strange story, Potter," said Snape. Harry didn't say anything. "He tells me that he was up by the Shrieking Shack when he ran into Weasley. Apparently alone." Still, Harry didn't speak. "Mr. Malfoy states that he was standing talking to Weasley when a large amount of mud hit him in the back of the head. How do you think that could have happened?" Harry tried to look mildly surprised. I don't know, Professor." Snape's eyes were boring into Harry's, which means like digging into Harry's. He was like making real intense eye contact. It was exactly like trying to stare out a hippogriff. Harry tried hard not to blink. "Mr. Malfoy then saw an extraordinary thing. Can you imagine what that might have been, Potter?" "No," said Harry, now trying to sound innocently curious. "It was your head, Potter, floating in midair." There was a long silence. "Maybe he'd better go to Madame Pomfrey," the nurse said. Harry, if he's seeing things like that, that's not good." "What would your head have been doing in Hogsmeade, Potter?" said Snape. "Your head is not allowed in Hogsmeade. No part of your body has permission to be in Hogsmeade." "I know that," said Harry, striving to keep his face free of guilt or fear. It sounds like Malfoy's having hallucination." "Malfoy is not having hallucinations," snarled Snape, and he bent down, a hand on each arm of Harry's chair so that their faces were just a foot apart. "Your head was in Hogsmeade. So was the rest of you." "I've been in Gryffindor Tower," said Harry, "like you told me. Can anyone confirm that?" Harry didn't say anything. Snape's thin mouth curled into a horrible smile. "So," he said, straightening up again, "everyone from the Minister of Magic downwards has been trying to keep famous Harry Potter safe from Sirius Black. But famous Harry Potter is a law unto himself. Let the ordinary people worry about his safety. Famous Harry goes where he wants to, with no thought for the consequences." Harry stayed silent. Snape was trying to provoke him into telling the truth. He wasn't going to do it. Snape had no proof yet. "How extraordinarily like your father you are, Potter," Snape said suddenly, his eyes glinting. "He, too, was exceedingly arrogant. A small amount of talent on the Quidditch pitch made him think that he was a cut above the rest of us, too, strutting around the place with his friends and admirers. The resemblance between you two is uncanny." "My dad didn't strut," said Harry, before he could stop for himself. And nor do I. Your father didn't set much store by rules either, Snape went on, pressing his advantage, his thin face full of malice. Rules were for lesser people than him, not for Quidditch Cup winners. His head was so swollen. Shut up! Harry was suddenly on his feet. Rage as he had not felt since his last night in Privet Drive was thundering through him. He didn't care that Snape's face had gone rigid, that his black eyes were flashing dangerously. What did you say to me, Potter? I told you to shut up about my dad, Harry yelled. I know the truth, all right? He saved your life. Dumbledore told me. You wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for my dad. Snape's swallow skin had gone the color of sour milk. And did the headmaster tell you the circumstance in which your father saved my life? Or did he consider the details too unpleasant for precious Potter's delicate ears? Harry bit his lip. He didn't know what had happened, and he didn't want to admit it, but Snape seemed to have guessed the truth. I would hate you to run away with a false idea of your father, Potter, he said in a terrible grin, twisting his face. Have you been imagining some act of glorious heroism? Then let me correct you. Your saintly father and his friends played a highly amusing joke on me that would have resulted in my death if your father hadn't gotten cold feet at the last moment. There was nothing brave about what he did. He was saving his own skin as much as he would mine. Had their joke succeeded, he and his friends would have been expelled from Hogwarts. Snape's uneven, yellowish teeth were bared. Turn out your pockets, Potter, he spat suddenly. Harry didn't move. There was a pounding in his ears. Turn out your pockets or we go straight to Dumbledore. Pull 'em out, Potter. Cold with dread, Harry slowly pulled out the bag of Zonko's tricks and the Marauder's map. Snape picked up the Zonko's bags. Ron gave them to me, said Harry, praying he'd get a chance to tip Ron off before Snape saw him. He brought them back from Hogsmeade last time. Indeed. And you've just been carrying around these things from Zonko's this whole time? Snape had picked up the map. Harry tried with all his might to keep his face impassive. Spare bit of parchment, he shrugged. Snape turned it over, his eyes on Harry. Surely you don't need such a very old piece of parchment, he said. Why don't I just throw it away? His hand moved towards the fire. No, said Harry quickly. So, said Snape, his long nostrils quivering. Is this another treasured gift from Mr. Weasley? Or is it something else? A letter? Perhaps written in invisible ink? Or instructions on how to get into Hogsmeade without passing the Dementors? Harry blinked. Snape's eyes gleamed. Let me see, he muttered, taking out his wand and smoothing the map out on his desk. Reveal your secret, he said, touching his wand to the parchment. Nothing happened. Harry clenched his hands to stop them from shaking. Show yourself, Snape tapping the map sharply. It stayed blank. Harry was taking deep, calming breaths. Professor Severus Snape, master of this school, commands you to yield the information you conceal, Snape said, touching the map again with his wand. As though an invisible hand was writing upon it, words appeared on the smooth surface of the map. Mr. Moody presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to give his abnormally large note to keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business. Snape froze. Harry stared dumbstruck at the message, but the map didn't stop there. More writing was appearing beneath. Oh no. Mr. Prongs agrees with Mr. Mooney and would like to add that Professor Snape is an ugly git. It would have been very funny if the situation hadn't been so serious. And then there was more. The map read, Mr. Padfoot would like to register his astonishment that an idiot like that ever became a professor. Harry closed his eyes in horror. When he opened them, the map had had its last word. Mr. Wormtail bids Professor Snape good day and advises him to wash his hair. He's a slimeball. Harry waited for the blow to fall. So, said Snape softly, we'll see about this. He strode across to the fire, seized a fistful of glittering powder from the jar in the fireplace, and threw it into the flames. Lupin, Snape called in the fire. I want a word. Utterly bewildered, Harry stared at the fire. A large shape had appeared in it, revolving around very fast. Seconds later, Professor Lupin was climbing out of the fireplace, brushing ash off of his shabby robes. All right, I'm going to stop there. My computer just shut off, so I hope you guys got that. And we will talk about what Lupin has to say later. I'm sure that you've already seen part of this in the, I think we watched a scene from this possibly already. So, hey, have a great day. This is a really long reading. It probably makes up for the fact that I didn't do any yesterday. And I will see you tonight on the Zoom call. Try to stay warm. Talk to you soon. Bye.